Hey, all, welcome to the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. This is the podcast where we interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country. We share their stories, their struggles, proven lessons in leadership, and their journey to find mission and purpose. And I've got two amazing guests on the show today to discuss a much-watched film. We've got Max Martini, who has played pretty significant roles in Saving Private Ryan, The Unit, which, by the way, is one of my favorite shows, 13 Hours, where you played Mark Gast, and a number of other films. And Luis Bordonada, an Army veteran. You are the son of a retired Army sergeant, Alexander Bordonada, who served 3 combat tours of Vietnam and Korea. You and I share that. Your first break, I think, came with the Hughes brothers and their film, The Book of Eli. So I just want to say this proves that our Army guys have talent. Not as much as us sailors, but there is hope for you guys. So welcome to you both. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so guys, listen, Max, you wrote and directed Sergeant Will Gardner. This is a film that I believe that everybody needs to watch this film. It follows an Iraq War veteran, Will Gardner, who suffers from PTSD and the lingering effects of TBI, traumatic brain injury. It's a story we see often featured in the media. You produced it, your film company, along with your film partner Michael Haggerty, under your production banner, Monte Vista Productions. Talk to me, what inspired you to write and produce this story now?
Well, here's the thing: is that it's actually the project started while I was shooting The Unit, so it's been about a 9-year journey, and the reason it took so long is because, and I'm sure we'll get into this in the discussion, but Mike Haggerty and I always had the intention to give to charity. So, in our search for financing, we were having to tell financiers that they would be coming on without a write-off, and that proved difficult. So, look, at the end of the day, we found 2 investors that wanted to come on, didn't care about the write-offs, cared more about the troops, and gave us the money to make the film. But it has been a little bit longer of a road. And back when I started, it was we were still sort of at the head of the war, and soldiers returning in these conditions, that was front page news, and and now it's not, and I believe that it still should be. That the numbers are sobering, so hopefully we can draw some attention back to that.
I think that's a good point. There's 2 things I want to pick up on. And number one, you said 9 years. Is that correct? 9 years that you've been working on this thing? Yeah, that's crazy. Not uncommon, as I understand it. But the other point that you also brought up is, this story's kind of been removed from the headlines a little bit. Certainly Afghanistan, the things that we have going on in Afghanistan. And I think it is important. It's a reminder of that we do still need to pay attention, that people are still serving on the front lines to keep the rest of us back home safe and able to do the things we do. There's a line in the movie, Max, man, this was so hard. You said, just like all of them looking for a handout. And your response was, my injury is real, bro. Talk to us about that line. Was that something that you had heard often? Where did you pull that line? I mean, that's a pretty powerful line.
Yeah, boy, I don't know. I don't think I pulled it from anything specifically. I just, I have, now that I've been part of so many military projects, and for so many years, my base of friends is largely military, and unfortunately, I have friends with TBI. I have friends that are in treatment today, and I have friends, with PTS and alcohol dependencies, and it's just look, not just to make a point. Not every soldier returns with these conditions, but sadly, it's part of my inner circle, and so I had a lot driving me, a lot of personal experience driving me when I was writing this film, and that's the reality. Yeah.
Well, Max, I'm just going to say that as somebody who has served and been around frogmen in the community and EOD, etc. I will say that I actually thought you did serve, so you play the role well. So I'll just I tip my hat off to you. I salute you on that.
I think at this point, I could have
Right.
served.
That's right.
I've had so much training, but it's something that I often think about, and it was I remember being probably 19 or 20, and my dad took me into the recruiting office in Times Square and sat me down in front of the Air Force recruiter, and at the time it wasn't a priority. It wasn't high on my list of things to do, and but now in hindsight, after having gone to the Middle East, I remember looking out into this kind of sea of soldiers and thinking, man, I just I might have missed a beat. I could have done this. I would have liked to have done it, but that's not that wasn't the road for me. So, but this is a different kind of service, and I'm really proud of it. And I think that there's a lot of the soldiers that are unfortunately in these conditions, suffering from these conditions right now, really need a call to action. There's a need for people to get involved.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say that, Luis, you and I probably agree with this. We're probably glad that Max didn't join the Air Force, right? I mean, that's. I mean, as long as he joins either the Army or the Navy, I mean, the Air Force, holy smoke. So that's a big shout out to my Air Force brothers, though. So, Luis, you served in the Army, and you've gone on to have a pretty compelling career in entertainment. And in this film, Will Gardner, Sergeant Will Gardner, you portray Charlie Burroughs in the film. And I think the press piece said that it was one of your most intimate roles to date. So walk me through that. Why was this a pretty intimate role for you?
Well, you know what? First, I didn't want to jump in, but I'd like to say that I when I first met Max, I actually thought he had served.
Yeah, right. I know. I would serve with that guy, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I'd let
mean,
him run point all day long. So
yeah. I share a foxhole with that man.
yeah,
It's
that's awesome.
that's an intimidating figure right there, So yeah, no, I thought for sure that he had served, and the way he treated the material was such respect that I thought, well, that can only be because he served. And I think when I first got the script, I was a little skeptical, to be honest, when I got the sides to do this, to tape an audition, because I was like, oh man, another like military movie, and it's gonna be. I hope it's not treated, you know what I mean, the way the usual things are done. And it was the delight meeting Max and finding out how much it meant to him. I'm sorry, man. I was gonna touch on your question, and I completely
No,
touched
no,
base.
no. I just said that my question to you was, you portray Charlie Burroughs in the film, which is a veteran that is kind of down and out, and Max is, yeah. I mean, why is it so intimate for you?
It meant for so many reasons. It was there was so many. One, I was in the military, and I'm a veteran myself. I was injured in a parachute jump because I was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, and my dad, having seen my dad uh, go through 2 tours in Vietnam, I see his injuries on him every day. Like he's got a scar that goes from one side of his gut to the other, and then he's got a scar on his head from the shrapnel from the second injury that he got. And I remember being in a bank once, just in line, and randomly, my father at like 65 or something, he just started in the line. He just started telling me how just started in the middle of the story, almost like if he had been telling it to somebody in his head, and suddenly just branching off to telling me how it is that he got his first injury. And he was like, yeah, the sniper was over there. I saw a flash, but I had climbed. He said I had climbed this little mount where the snipers were not snipers where the enemy was, and he's like, I jumped over the mount, I got one, and he was describing how he killed these two people, and how when he turned around after taking down the second one, that he saw a flash, and that's the flash that took him down, and I was in shock because we're in line, and I knew I just had to let him talk because he had never shared anything from his combat experience to me in my, I think I was about 29 at the time. I had never heard anything about it. So having already served, I understood what he was going through. And then I saw my cousin go through, I experienced his internal injury. So I experienced my father's external injury and internal, and then my cousin's internal, having PTSD moments, moments of loss, and mental sort of loss.
So this role was really personal for you.
Very personal. It was everything. It embodies everything that I've been through, that I've seen, that I've experienced. I dealt with issues with the VA getting out. I've been homeless myself. There's nothing in Charlie Burroughs except for missing a leg that I haven't experienced, and the whole the article. I mean, his journey to find comfort in his father, to me meant everything, because I had two fathers. You know what I mean? My father, my biological father, who's the veteran, and but also my first half, I was raised by my grandfather. So that carried so much meaning for me, and I don't think that I've ever had so much of my life be a part of a character. I think this is by far the most intimate and important character to me that I've been blessed to play and to portray.
Well, it's so well played, and this I want you both to kind of address this question. You guys can fight over who answers it first, but walk me through why you think this film doesn't necessarily perpetuate the thought that the many civilians have. Less than 1% of this country serves on active duty, so there's a lot of misperception out there, a lot of veteran myths. But walk me through why you think this film doesn't perpetuate this sense that all veterans are broken, or damaged goods. I mean, the characters in here, now there's some amazing parts, and Max, I'm going to get to those, because where you reunite with your son in this film is extremely powerful. And I want to address that a little bit, but how is there any concern that this film might perpetuate that? Wait a second, maybe we should still have some concerns about our veterans?
Well, I mean, I think that what differentiates this film from others is that it's not 2 hours of watching somebody in suffering. It's really a story about healing, and what I wanted to do, was show that this soldier that is at a low point in his life, and again, to reiterate, like, this isn't what every soldier returns from combat with, but these are things that so many face, and that with a little assistance, this our hero, he is a true hero, and that he's capable of employment, and he's capable of being a father, and he's capable of being a loving husband and a partner to somebody, and that, and I feel like that's something that we don't see often when these movies portray soldiers with PTS. It was important for me to I wanted to make it something that was inspirational, and that the through line, I guess, at the end of the day, is that if with a little with healing, you can inspire people, other soldiers that are suffering, to come forward, and you can also be a helping hand, in that you have already walked the walk, and so I think that there's a positive message there, you know. And so to answer your question, I think this movie stands out in that, you know, not only is it raising money for charities, not only is it raising awareness, but it's also a story that hopefully will inspire
Yeah,
others to come forward
that's
and ask for
awesome.
help.
Luis, what was your take on this? You know, having served and your concern, you know, that this might could be, you know, just another, you know, veteran movie. What concerns? I mean, you see the finished product, and obviously you're biased. I mean, it's a great film. I want to be sure that I put that out there and encourage all of our listeners to be sure that they watch this. But any concerns that maybe some of this stuff will perpetuate, you know, some myths that are already out there?
No, I don't think that it. I think if anything, it'll raise awareness, and I think it's in a
Yeah.
very subtle, nuanced, and I like this word for it, honorable way, you know,
Yeah.
because everything's treated like Max said. What one of my favorite moments in the movie is, or one of my favorite moments in the movie are the moments between Max and his son, you know, and
Mm, yeah.
I see a lot of soldiers get out and then have to struggle with getting back in touch with their son or their children. But I see a lot of soldiers get out and have perfectly normal life. My father, 70 years old. I mean, he's never even been on disability. You know, I mean, he's been able to function and have a perfectly normal life. And I think that there's a lot of of a lot of what's in the movie is actually going to help perpetuate the idea that there are sane veterans, that there are healthy veterans out there. But it's just there's these few that need a lot of help and that need to be. And I think what it also does, it raises flags on how you can see that at times, you know, because if you see um, Max's character, if you see Will Gardner on the motorcycle, and he's before you see him working as a homeless person in California, then you see him, you know, in DC. He looks like a perfectly normal human being. Um,
Yeah.
so externally, you look strong, you look, you know, composed, but there's this internal journey that's happening. And I think, if anything, what this film does is it gives another example of how you can seem perfectly normal, but there are injuries that are internal, and that needs to be addressed. I think that's the message that I got from it, and that's the one thing that makes me incredibly proud to be a part of it. You know.
Well, and there's such a powerful line in there, Max and Luis, that I thought rang throughout the entire piece was silence is the killer. And I think to your point, you know, Max, this character, Will Gardner, goes on this journey um, and is faced with having to address some of these issues, right? Walking with his battle buddy.
Can I interrupt you really quick?
And
What that line,
yeah,
there is an inspiration for that line, that one in particular. You know, when I did Saving Private Ryan, it was my first military film, and I went to the premiere, and you know, I was at the pre party. We were having drinks, and I was sitting with all these World War II vets, and we were all talking and laughing, and you know, they were hitting on my wife, and I mean, it was hilarious, and it just, you know, they're all 90, and you know, but. But we went in and we sat in the theater together, and that opening scene came up, and I looked around, and they were just shell shocked and tearful. And at the end of the film, you know, what that movie did was start a conversation, you know, and it was very apparent that these gentlemen had sat on those memories for so long. And like Luis said, you know, his father never spoke about his combat experiences. You know, it's that you can't heal unless there's a dialogue, you know, and that's part of healing the emotional injuries, you know, of PTS, part of the process. And so, you know, I really that was very impactful for me, that moment at the Private Ryan premiere. I just thought, God, you know, this is you know, film is such a powerful medium. It's such a great if used properly, it can really facilitate, people's healing. You know.
Yeah, totally can. It totally can. There was a scene in there when you're reunited with your son. Your character's reunited with his son, and I will say that it's so many. Luis, you nailed it. I mean, that reintegration is so hard, right? Even for families that haven't separated but are separated because of deployment, then come back together. I remember I was gone 10 months and my girls were little. And I think my youngest, it probably took her close to a year to really warm back up to me because I was gone so often. That was tough. And, in this film, you show that, you're reunited after, several years. And that whole reintegration scene, very powerful, Max. And then, your son, the character, the son says, you ask him if he wants to join the military. The best line in there was, yep, loved, he wanted to be a SEAL. So I thought that was awesome, by the way. So no offense, Luis, but I thought that was brilliant.
That was a dig for all my buddies out there.
I was like, you know what? I'm loving the film just for this right here. I want to be respectful of you guys' time. Talk to me about the charities that are being supported as a result of the film's success, and what these charities do, and why it's important that people, even outside of going to see the film, also support these charities.
Well, look, I mean, Luis, touched on his experience with the VA. I think that, I know some people that have, some military folks that have had a great experience with the VA, and but unfortunately, I know so many that haven't, and including, Luis, and from what I understand, the system is very hard to navigate. Clearly, it's hard to navigate, and I just know too many people that it's taken even a decade to receive their benefits. So it's it's crucial that we support these outside organizations that are making up where the VA is failing until the system is fixed, and the three that we've chosen. And we, there was a process in choosing these charities, because we wanted to find charities where the money was getting to veterans. It was not, lining other people's pockets, and they organizations that didn't have outrageously high administrative fees, and so. Sure. Yep. So what we did find is there's an organization called Higher Ground that's based out of Sun Valley, Idaho. They're healing veterans using conventional therapies, but also recreational therapy. They have a tremendous program. They have a 3-year follow-up, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. So once you complete your therapy, they stay on you for 3 years to make sure that you're healing, that you're reintegrating. And additionally, they now have a branch in Los Angeles, which is focusing on the homeless veteran crisis in Southern California, which I'm passionate about. The second charity is called Warrior's Heart. It's based out of Texas. They're assisting not only veterans, but active duty service people and first responders that are suffering from drug and or alcohol dependencies and PTS. And then lastly is the Gary Sinise Foundation. And, Gary's in the movie. He's tremendous in the film. And his foundation is doing everything from entertaining around the world, entertaining troops, to building homes for veterans, to outfitting homes for veterans with disabilities. To just recently, they took thousands of Gold Star moms and their kids to Disneyland. I mean, they really
incredible.
Yeah, he's just someone that I'm in constant awe of. I'm so humbled by his service to the veteran community. I mean, he's really there's no one like him, and so just proudly we're giving money to his foundation.
That's awesome. That's so great. So, Luis and Max, I want to. I'm going to wrap it up, but if there was one piece of advice, and Luis, I'll start with you. If there was one piece of advice you have for transitioning service members and their families, for that matter, what would it be?
Oh man, this is a very important one for me. Thank you for asking us for this. When I was gonna get out, one of the hardest things, it's a very difficult thing to do because being in the military is kind of like being on a perfectly safe plane.
Yep.
And then the question was always like, when I was a paratrooper, so the question was always, why are you gonna jump out of a perfectly safe plane? You know, that's what the
Yeah,
Air Force joke with us about.
that's right.
Uh, so when I was gonna get out, the best metaphor that has helped me was um, getting out of the military is like jumping out of a perfectly safe plane. When you jump out of a perfectly safe plane, just you have to know when you're out there, you've been trained for whatever may come.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
everything will be fine. Know that you have all the training that you need, and as long as you maintain your focus, you will be just fine.
I think that's so good. I mean, you're talking about character aptitude and just a willingness to adapt. I think, which is so well trained in the military, and it's such. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's powerful, and I hope people pick up on it. Max, you've been around. I mean, you've played so many roles, and you're probably, honestly, probably better trained than I am at this point. So, I mean, what advice do you have both on both sides of this coin, really, from a civilian, standpoint, like when you see or hear of somebody who's served, but also, getting out? What's that thing? Be sure you do X. What is it?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's largely understanding that asking for help if it's needed is not a show of weakness. I think so many soldiers. I mean, I know I'm speaking just again from having such a big base of military buddies. That it seems to be an obstacle that they don't want to ask for help. There's a fear of being stigmatized. There's but that's not the case, and there is help out there, and there's a lot of people that are in the same shoes, and I'd also like to add that, look, I think that we put so much energy and so much money into training soldiers for combat. We send them to specialty schools. It's an investment, and when they return, we need to put the same amount of energy and the same amount of investment into their reintegration and exit strategy from combat. I think that really is where you start to address the problem. I do want to add. Look, it's when this movie in my mind is not successful until we start giving back to charities, giving to these charities, until we're in that phase of this journey. I really going back to what I said about it not being front page news anymore. I really want to bring uh, the media into that leg of this journey. I'd love to come back on the show and talk about that when we're doing this, because it's really important to me, and that's really why we made this film. And if people want to follow me on social media, I'm going to make a spectacle of that process, so if I can add, it's I'm on Twitter, I'm Max Martini LA, and Instagram, I'm Max Martini LA. It's very simple, but I would love the support for that last leg of the journey, and I'd love for people to see what we're doing because I think it's going to be positive.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and yeah, the both of you, I'd love to have you back. Certainly, continue on this journey with you. Continue to bring attention to these issues that you guys are raising, and if there's other issues that you think are important that need to be raised, let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. Luis, how can people get in touch with you? I mean, do you want people to follow you? Do you just want to go to
No,
the store and be left
absolutely.
alone? What's your story?
No, it's funny. I haven't experienced that that part of it as much yet, but I'm fine with it. And when it comes to troops, I want to be reached. I want to be like, because I understand some of the journey. I can't tell you what it's like to overcome having been in combat, but I can tell you I can help with as much as I can help. and I'm here. You know, I'm very accessible. I'm on Instagram at L Bordonada, and I'm on Twitter with the same. It's at L Bordonada, and you know,
That's
I'm
awesome.
available because there's even just I know what I had to go through to get even medical attention at times because for my spinal injury, and just there's a lot of organizations out there that are doing a lot of work and a lot of help, and there's like Max said, being asking for help is not
That's
a
right.
weakness,
That's true
you know.
strength right there.
And
Yeah.
I gotta say before, if you don't mind, just I gotta get this in here. Um, Max is I look up to this man so much because as much as he says I didn't serve, he's doing so much for the troops right now. His passion for giving back to the troops is inspiring to me. And Max, I mean, thank you for your service, brother, because this is the service that we need. And so, yeah, to answer your question, they can reach me where if they see me, and if anybody sees me in the street and wants to ask me a question about transitioning or anything like that, I am all for it.
That's
I'm
awesome.
available.
Well, I want to be sure that everybody, you go see the film, Sergeant Will Gardner. It's coming out January 11th, correct? I think that's the correct date. Um,
Yeah, January 11th it comes out on select theaters. If you go to my Instagram, it's listed. The theaters are listed in the cities, and then it also simultaneously will show on video on demand. So whatever your digital provider is, or iTunes, Amazon, you can pre-order now. It's on Fandango now, and then February 19th, the DVD and Blu-ray comes out.
oh, that's awesome. Well, and you know what, Max, I hope that you don't continue to get confused as Bryan Cranston. You know, I think that's, that line made me laugh in the film a lot. And I thought, man, that's pretty funny. So, man, gentlemen, I just want to thank you both for being on the show. Hold on, but I just want to thank you both for truly being on the show. It's a pleasure, and
Thanks.
just know that you'll always be invited back.
Thank you so much.